The banquet hall on Station Concord hummed with translated laughter, the kind that came out flat and mechanical no matter how good the software got. Ambassadors from 6 worlds sat at a long crescent table, sampling foods they'd spent decades negotiating trade rights to taste, while human soldiers stood at the edges in dress uniforms, present but not quite included. Gunnery Sergeant Wyatt Holloway stood near the back wall, arms folded, watching the room the way he watched everything, like it might turn hostile in the next 4 seconds. 3 years since the armistice with the Scarn Compact. 3 years since humanity had gone from unknown variable to reluctantly invited to the table. He didn't trust the quiet. Old habit. It was Ambassador Threll Vashon of the Compact who started it, swirling something violet in a crystal glass, smiling with too many teeth for a smile to be friendly. "Sergeant," Vashon called across the hall, voice carrying with practiced ease. "A curiosity, if you'll indulge an old soldier turned diplomat. Your species fought valiantly at Coraline Reach. Heroically, even. Tell us, what is your kill count?" The room quieted, not all at once, but in a ripple, conversations dying as heads turned. A few of the alien officers chuckled, the kind of laugh that assumed the answer would be small, almost embarrassing, a number to be politely nodded at before the real conversation resumed. Humans, after all, had only had starships for 40 years. What could one soldier possibly have done in that time? Holloway didn't move from the wall. "You want an exact number, Ambassador, or a good story?" More laughter, easier this time. Vashon's antennae flicked with amusement. "Humor me with the exact number, Sergeant. We are all friends here." Holloway looked at his glass. He hadn't touched it all night. 2,114, he said. The laughter didn't die. It evaporated. Glasses stopped halfway to their mouths. Somewhere near the front table, a Threxian officer's mandibles clicked twice in what Holloway had learned, over 3 years of joint operations, was the equivalent of a sharp intake of breath. Vashon's smile stayed frozen on his face a half-second too long. "That is a specific number, Sergeant. Surely you're rounding." "No, sir." "Then perhaps you're including support fire. Artillery. Orbital strikes credited to your unit." "No, sir. That's a rifle and blade." "Confirmed." A young compact attaché near the front, barely out of his cadet years, Holloway guessed, by the unweathered shine of his carapace, laughed nervously into the silence. "That's not possible. No single soldier, no single organic soldier." "Coraline Reach," Holloway said, and something in his voice made the attaché stop talking. "You know the name. Most of you do. 6 days. My company held the Eastern Trench Line so the evac ships could get 30,000 civilians off that rock before your fleet, before the old compact fleet, before the armistice, glassed the surface." He finally pushed off the wall and walked toward the center of the room, and nobody stopped him, because something about the way he moved made it clear that stopping him would be a mistake. Day 1, we had 206 Marines dug into that trench. By day 6, we had 11. He held up a hand before anyone could speak. "I'm not telling you this to make you feel small. I'm telling you because you asked, and I don't lie to people who ask me honest questions, even when they're asking as a joke." Ambassador Vashon set down his glass. The violet liquid had stopped swirling. "The Scarn ground forces back then, the old regime, before your people overthrew them, didn't take prisoners," Holloway continued. "You know that. Some of you were there. They came to that trench in waves because their command structure punished retreat worse than death. So they kept coming. And we kept holding, because behind us were ships loading up kids and grandparents, and people who'd never held a weapon in their life, and somebody had to make sure the wave didn't reach them." He stopped a few feet from the ambassador's table. The whole hall was silent now, 300 beings from 6 worlds not making a sound. 2,114, he repeated, quieter now. "That's not a boast, Ambassador. That's a headcount of every single one of your old regime soldiers who decided that a trench full of exhausted humans was worth dying to break. I didn't want the number to be that high. I wanted it to be 0. I wanted the fighting to never start at all. But it did, and when it did, I made a promise to the 11 Marines still breathing next to me on day 6 that not one more evac ship was going up with an empty seat because we flinched." The young attaché's earlier laugh was long gone. He was staring at Holloway now with something closer to horror, or maybe reverence, hard to tell with a species whose faces didn't move the way human faces did. All 30,000 got off that rock, Holloway said. Everyone. That's the number I actually care about. 2,000 and change is just the price tag. For a long moment nobody spoke. Then General Threx Ordain, a broad-shouldered Threxian officer who'd fought alongside human forces during the joint campaigns after the armistice, who'd bled next to humans on 3 separate worlds, rose slowly from his seat at the far end of the table. He crossed the hall in heavy, deliberate steps, and when he reached Holloway, he did something no Threxian did lightly. He lowered his head, exposing the vulnerable ridge of his neck in the old warrior's gesture of respect between equals. I was at Coraline Reach, the general said, voice low enough that only those nearby could hear. Not in your trench. In orbit, watching the old regime's command feeds, before I switched sides. I saw the casualty reports come in. I thought they were exaggerated by your propaganda ministry. I did not believe 11 men could still be standing after that many waves. He straightened. I owe you an apology I cannot give in words large enough. You don't owe me anything, General, Holloway said. You're standing here now. That's the whole point of the trench. Ambassador Vashon, to his credit, stood as well, and for the first time all evening, his voice carried none of its earlier theater. I asked the question as a joke, Sergeant. I did not expect an answer that would humble an entire hall. Holloway allowed himself, finally, a small, tired smile, not of triumph, but of something quieter. That's usually how it goes, sir. Nobody ever wants the real number. They just want a war story with the ugly parts left out. He picked up his untouched glass, raised it slightly toward the general, then toward the room at large. To the 11 who made it out, he said, and to every seat on every ship that wasn't empty. Around the hall, glasses rose, human, Threxian, compact, and beyond, in a silence that finally felt less like shock and more like something earned.